The galaxy remembered Earth as a quiet, irrelevant world. A backwater planet that sat in the shadows of the great empires, its people dismissed as stubborn, emotional, and endlessly unpredictable. When the Galactic Council admitted them as a member species, the older civilizations rolled their eyes. Earth was loud, Earth was restless, Earth refused to obey quietly. Then, one day, Earth walked away. Their ambassadors left the council hall without a word, their delegates tore down the banners, and their fleets retreated to the Sol system. The gates closed behind them. For a century, no one heard from them. But the galaxy did not stay quiet. Wars broke out. Borders shifted. The council weakened. And the enemies of order began to close in. By the time the galaxy realized the threat was too big to stop, it was already too late. That was when they saw them. Thousands of ships emerging from hyperspace, each one carrying a banner no one had seen in 100 years, blue and white, with a single golden star at its center. Earth had returned. And this time, they were not here to talk. The Council Hall of Concordia was not built for war. It was a monument to peace, a cathedral of glass and light that floated above the city like a star made solid. From orbit, the structure gleamed, an eternal reminder that the galaxy's greatest civilizations had once sworn never to spill each other's blood again. But on this day, peace was dying. The delegates of 100 worlds sat in the tiered chamber, their voices buzzing like an angry hive. Holograms flickered above their seats, species sigils pulsing in frustration. The air smelled faintly of ionized glass and tension, as though the chamber itself held its breath. At the center of the hall stood the humans. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but there was something about them, an energy, a barely contained ferocity, that made the entire chamber fall silent when Admiral Celeste Raines stepped forward. She wore a dark navy uniform with silver trim, the Sol emblem glittering on her chest. Her posture was perfect, her jaw tight, her eyes scanning the chamber like a predator sizing up the room. When she spoke, her voice carried with unnerving calm. "You demand too much." The words rippled across the hall like a gunshot. "You demand our fleets, our resources, our compliance. And yet when our colonies burned, when Earth itself was attacked, this council sent nothing. Not a single ship. Not a single soldier." A low hiss of discontent rose from the seats of the Ketheri delegation. Their ambassador, a scaled, serpentine creature with a crown of quills, coiled tighter around its chair. "The council acted within its means," said Chancellor Vror, rising from his crystalline throne. His long, insectoid limbs clicked against the railing as he spoke, his mandibles clicking with irritation. "Earth's conflicts were local matters. You settled in contested space. You ignored council advisories. You provoked. We chose to survive," Raines snapped, her voice suddenly sharp as a blade. The chamber froze. Her words seemed to hang there, heavy, electric. "We asked for help, Chancellor. We pleaded for aid while our people were slaughtered. The council voted to observe." Her lip curled. "And you expect us to keep sending our sons and daughters to patrol your borders while you watch us die from your crystal towers?" Gasps echoed across the room. The Thal delegation, a species known for its calm and logic, shifted uneasily in their seats. Even the Veer, who had always mocked humanity's impulsiveness, sat motionless. Then something happened that no one expected. The human delegation began removing their council insignias. Each metal badge, silver with the spiral of Concordia, was pulled from a breast pocket or sleeve and dropped to the floor. The sound of each one hitting the crystalline platform rang like a bell. Clink. 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 One by one, until only Admiral Raines remained. She reached up, unclipped her own insignia, and let it fall. It struck the crystal floor with a sound that seemed louder than it should have been, louder than anything in the chamber. "Earth withdraws from the council," she said, every word precise, deliberate. "Effective immediately. The Chancellor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. You cannot simply. We can, Rains cut him off, her tone ice-cold. And we will. Then she turned her back on the Chancellor. And every human in the chamber followed. The sound of their boots on the floor echoed like war drums as they crossed the chamber and headed for the great doors. The other delegates sat frozen in shock, too stunned to speak, too stunned to stop them. At the threshold, Rains paused and glanced back just once. When the galaxy comes knocking on your gates, she said, do not call for us. Then the doors closed behind her. The departure of the humans sent tremors through the galaxy. At first, the Council dismissed it as a tantrum. Trade ambassadors predicted Earth would come crawling back within a decade. Pundits mocked them in the galactic feeds, humans were too loud, too reckless, too young to go it alone. But Earth did not return. In fact, Earth seemed to vanish. Council trade routes through Sol were shut down. Merchant convoys were turned away by automated defenses. Orbital scans of human space showed massive construction efforts, shipyards the size of moons, asteroid mining networks stripping entire belts to their cores, but no one knew what they were building. And then, communications went silent. Human colonies stopped answering Council hails. No ambassadors, no envoys, no trade representatives. The Sol system was sealed by a wall of gravity mines and interdiction fields. Even the most daring smugglers refused to go near it. Years passed. Then decades. The galaxy moved on, at least on the surface. But beneath that surface, cracks began to form. Without Earth's fleets patrolling the rim, pirate kingdoms rose from the ashes. The Auric swarm, thought to be extinct, began consuming entire sectors. Council worlds bickered and fought over who should pick up the slack. By the end of the century, the galaxy was on fire. For the first time in generations, the Council sent a formal message to Earth. There was no reply. A second message followed. Then a third. Then a fleet dispatched with an offer of reconciliation. That fleet never returned. And so the galaxy waited. Waited for the day Earth would either return, or finally be crushed under the weight of the chaos it had unleashed. The first tremor of Earth's return came on a moonless night over Arcturus Prime. The listening post was a lonely structure, an automated station drifting in the shadow of the gas giant, its crew of 12 half asleep at their consoles. For decades, their job had been boring: monitor hyperspace lanes, report pirate activity, call for help if the Auric swarm ever appeared. No one expected anything unusual. Then the alarms screamed. "Jump signature," shouted Lieutenant Erez, slamming his hand on the console. "Correction, multiple jump signatures." The station's main viewport lit up with hyperspace distortions, first one, then two, then dozens. By the time the sensors stabilized, the count had jumped to hundreds. "That can't be right," the commander muttered, his throat dry. "Recheck the array." "I already did," Erez said, his voice shaking. "Sir, we've got over 900 confirmed signals emerging from deep space lanes." The crew watched in stunned silence as ship after ship broke through hyperspace, their drives leaving trails of blue fire. The vessels were massive, larger than anything the Council had fielded in centuries, yet sleek, almost predatory in design. Their hulls were black as void, reflecting no starlight except for a single glowing emblem painted across each prow. A golden star. No one on the station dared breathe. "Open a channel," the commander whispered. The comm officer's hands trembled as she sent the hail. No reply. Then, suddenly, the largest of the ships rotated to face the station. Its silhouette blocked the distant sun, casting the listening post in shadow. "Are they targeting us?" Before anyone could panic, a transmission arrived. Not words. Not a language. A single symbol, the same golden star, pulsing slowly on the station's screen. And then the fleet jumped again, vanishing as quickly as it had come. The report reached the Galactic Council within hours. By dawn, every major government in the galaxy had seen the images. The return. The council chamber was silent when the holoscreens lit up, displaying the data feeds from Arcturus. The footage showed 1,000 ships moving in perfect formation, their drives synchronized like the heartbeat of some enormous creature. "They've been building this whole time," whispered Ambassador Selvar of the Veer, her usually calm voice betraying a tremor. "In secret. For 100 years. They can't have constructed this much," said the Ketheri delegate, his quills rattling with agitation. "A fleet that size would require strip mining half a sector." "Perhaps they did," murmured another. The Chancellor's mandibles clicked in frustration. "We must establish contact at once. If Earth has returned, we cannot allow them to act outside Council control." But Earth had already begun to act. Within a single week, entire Auric hives were gone, burned to ash by precision strikes. Surveillance drones caught glimpses of the human fleet in action, ships emerging from hyperspace, firing a single volley, then vanishing before the enemy could respond. The effect was terrifying. Where the Auric had once consumed systems in days, they were now retreating. Planets that had been under siege for decades were suddenly liberated. Refugees reported that human ground forces followed in the wake of the fleet, armored soldiers in black combat suits, carrying weapons the galaxy had never seen, dismantling the swarm with ruthless efficiency. They did not ask for help. They did not wait for approval. They simply advanced. The message. At last, the Council succeeded in opening a channel. Every screen across Concordia lit up with the same image. A woman's face. Admiral Celeste Rains. She was older now, her hair silver at the temples, her uniform darker, its insignia reduced to a single golden star over her heart. "You ignored our cries for aid when we were bleeding," she said, her voice as calm as a frozen sea. "You left us to fend for ourselves while our children were hunted." Her gaze seemed to pierce through the screen. "We have not forgotten." A holomap appeared beside her image, displaying red markers where the Auric hives once stood. One by one, they blinked out, replaced by golden stars. "We will finish this war," Rains said. "Not for you. Not for the Council. For the innocents you abandoned." The transmission cut off. The galaxy watches. The galaxy was transfixed. Some were inspired, worlds on the edge of destruction now had hope, watching the humans sweep aside the swarm with mechanical precision. Others were terrified. The fleet's discipline, its scale, its technology, none of it resembled the clumsy, scattered forces humanity had once fielded. This was something new. This was a war machine that had spent a century sharpening its blade. Everywhere the fleet went, order followed. Pirate fleets vanished. Smuggling routes closed. Systems long lost to chaos suddenly found themselves under strict martial law. The Council attempted to send observers, none were allowed aboard. Instead, Earth broadcast a single, cryptic statement. "The Golden Star does not need permission to protect what is theirs." Whispers and fear. In the bars and markets of Concordia, people whispered. Had Earth been building this fleet from the day they left? Where had they gotten the resources? Why were their ships so advanced, decades, perhaps centuries, beyond anything the Council possessed? And, most of all, what would happen when the Auric were gone? Would Earth simply leave again? Or would they stay, and rule? By the end of the second month, it was clear that the Auric War was no longer a war, it was a purge. The swarm's hive minds were burning, their planets cleansed. And still, the fleet grew. New ships were joining the armada, fresh from some hidden shipyard no one had ever seen. By the third month, the humans had positioned fleets at every major hyperspace choke point, effectively controlling galactic movement. And yet, not a single human word was spoken beyond Admiral Rain's short message. The galaxy had waited a century for Earth to speak. And now, they were speaking through fire. The council hall had not changed in 100 years. Its crystal walls still shimmered, its domed ceiling still glowed with the light of 100 stars. But the chamber no longer felt like a place of unity. The delegates sat stiff in their seats, their voices hushed. Even the ever-chattering Ketheri were silent. Every eye was fixed on the massive holomap floating above the center of the chamber. It showed the galaxy. And across that galaxy, 1,000 golden stars now pulsed, marking the positions of Earth's fleets. They were everywhere, major hyperspace junctions, trade routes, supply depots, even within the inner core sectors once thought unreachable by outsiders. It was not a threat. It was control. The Chancellor stood at the center platform, his long insectoid limbs trembling despite his attempt at composure. "We are gathered in extraordinary session," he began, his mandibles clicking nervously, "to discuss the unprecedented mobilization of human fleets across Council space." He never finished. The doors opened. They did not swing wide as they had a century ago, they parted with a slow, deliberate hiss, as though the hall itself was bowing. The humans entered. Admiral Celeste Rains led them, her uniform darker than before, a single golden star gleaming on her chest. Behind her marched a dozen officers, their boots striking the crystal floor in perfect unison. This time, they did not look like a delegation. They looked like conquerors. Rains stopped at the center of the chamber, beneath the glowing map, and raised her eyes to meet the Chancellor's. "You called us," she said, her voice calm, steady. "You begged for our fleets. You begged for our aid. You begged for the survival of your council." The chamber was deathly quiet. "And you will have it," she continued, stepping forward, her shadow falling across the Chancellor's platform, "on our terms." A gesture from her, and the holomap shifted. Every golden star turned blue. Trade routes lit up, supply chains realigned, and blockade points appeared across the galaxy, controlled by Earth's fleet. The delegates gasped. "This is unacceptable," snapped the Ketheri ambassador, slamming a claw against his console. "You cannot simply take control of our lanes." "You had a century," Rains said, cutting him off with a glance that could freeze suns. "You had a century to stop the swarm, to stop the pirates, to keep order. You failed." "We did not." The Vare delegate leaned forward, her pale face unreadable. "And after the Auric are gone? After the pirates are broken? Will you leave?" Rains turned to face her fully. "No." The word dropped like a hammer. "We are done being ignored," Rains said. "We are done watching from the sidelines while the galaxy collapses. From this day forward, the Sol Federation will not ask for a seat in this hall. We will take one." Gasps rippled across the chamber. "You cannot dictate terms to the Council," the Chancellor hissed, mandibles clacking furiously. Rains smiled, slow, cold, and final. "We already have." Her voice was quiet, but the entire chamber heard her. Outside, through the crystal dome, the delegates could see them, human warships, hundreds of them, hanging in high orbit above Concordia. Massive carriers, destroyers, and spear-shaped dreadnoughts forming a wall of steel and firepower. Their hulls caught the light of the capital star, the golden star emblem gleaming like a sun of its own. "Look around you," Rain said softly. "Your worlds are still standing because we chose to save them. Your shipping lanes are open because we chose to guard them. Your children are alive because we burned the swarm out of the dark." She let the silence stretch. "This is not a threat," she said finally. "It is a promise. The age of indecision is over. The galaxy will be secure, not because you voted for it, but because we will make it so." One by one, the delegates realized what was happening. This was not diplomacy. This was a declaration. The Ketheri ambassador hissed in rage, but the Thal delegate, ever logical, merely inclined her head. "It appears," the Thal said, her voice calm, "that the balance of power has shifted. No one dared to argue. The moment. The vote was ceremonial at best. The Council, cornered and outmaneuvered, acknowledged Earth's return, not as a member, but as a partner. Some called it surrender. Others called it salvation. But when the vote passed, Admiral Rain simply nodded, as if everything had gone exactly as planned. A new dawn. Outside, the human fleet slowly rotated, engines flaring as they took up new positions. The golden stars shining on their hulls glowed brighter, as though heralding a new age. On the streets of Concordia, refugees cheered, waving improvised banners with the same star. Merchants broadcast messages of thanks. Soldiers who had fought losing battles for years fell to their knees in relief. And in the council hall, the delegates watched it all with a mixture of awe and fear. Earth had returned. Not as a voice in the chorus, but as the conductor. Rain stood before them one last time, her expression unreadable. "Remember this day," she said quietly. "The day the galaxy stopped waiting for someone else to save it." She turned, her officers following in perfect step. The doors closed behind them with a hiss that echoed like the seal of fate. Above Concordia, 1,000 human warships burned against the blackness of space, a wall of firepower that no one would dare challenge. The Council had thought Earth would crawl back in submission. Instead, they had returned as the masters of war. The galaxy would survive. But from this day forward, it would do so under the shadow of the Golden Star. And for the first time in living memory, no one dared to object. Pushpin subscribe to HFY Story Hub for more epic human vs. galaxy tales.